because John's gospel is, it may not be a different Jesus, but it's a different view of Jesus. And today's story only appears in John's gospel. And it's the first of the signs. You might think this is an interesting first sign because in the prologue of John, it begins with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was one, and the Word was with God, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. But the world did not recognize him. So we're expecting some grand, spectacular first miracle. And instead, we hear this story. So hear these words from John's Gospel, chapter 2, right in the beginning, verses 1 through 12, from the NRSV. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana, Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. And when the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to me? My time has not yet come." And his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Fill the wines, the jars with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And then Jesus said to them, "Now from," though the servants who had drawn out the water knew. And the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed him. And after this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother, brothers and sisters, and disciples, and they remained there a few days. So ends our reading. Let us meditate on these words in the sanctuary of our hearts and minds. Please pray with me. Come, Holy Spirit, fill our hearts, kindle us in the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit that we may all be renewed. And through you and together, we shall renew the face of this broken and healing earth. Amen. Doesn't it feel good to be finally talking about something fun in the Gospels? A wedding. Do you remember the last time you were at a wedding? No, like COVID. Anybody been in a wedding or attended a wedding? Yeah, me too. The last one was down in the Labyrinth. And yeah, it was beautiful and different. So we're having a celebration in the midst of COVID. And you can imagine that we're changing from our sweatpants, whatever you're wearing, into our finest festive attire. I have such strong emotions about weddings. On the one hand, I love them. Everybody loves them, right? Because they're fun. There's the happy couple. There's the family that all gathers together. And there's these pictures that we have from weddings from 10, 20, 40, 60, our aunts, they're eternally with us. There are these sacred moments that are with us forever. On the other hand, those of you who have organized weddings know that they're also a terrible pain. You know what I'm talking about, any of you? They're crazy, they're expensive. They bring family together when, the best and the worst of families, and sometimes there can be some real disasters and all these questions about who's going to sit with who and who can't sit with who and what tables they're going to be at. And then there's all the presents. And then there's all the thank you notes. And there's all the pressure. And then there's something always goes wrong. at a wedding. It gets out of hand. And I'd like to say that that wasn't the case in the first century. It didn't used to be that way. It was much more simple. But in first century Palestine, weddings often went 6 days. And it's not like the newly married couple went off to have their honeymoon. They stayed together. So it could go, hosting weddings could go on for days and days. And imagine if you were hosting, how stressful that would be. And so in the story, even Jesus seems annoyed. You know, in the story, the one. Remember, it's like Mary would be the kind of person who'd go downstairs into, like, in the kitchen to see what's going on. What do you need? How can I help? She finds out about the situation. We have no idea how. And Jesus, I think he says one of the most obnoxious things that's in the Bible. Like, it's like, think about that word made flesh. And he looks at his mother and he says, "Woman, what is that to me? Of what concern is that to me? My hour has not yet come." Maybe he doesn't want to be there. Maybe he's socially awkward. Maybe there's something about the wine there. Maybe he just wants to go home and read Isaiah. I don't know. Maybe he has a plan of what the big first sign will be. And here's his mother saying, and he's like, "Can we just wrap this thing up? The wine's out. Let's go home." And I think Mary, it's like this lovely moment of parenting, you know, and it speaks really well about the strength of her character. She basically ignores him and just talks to the stewards and says, just whatever he tells you to do, do it. She doesn't argue with him. And they go to fill up the jars as he commands, and he makes this transformation. What do we make of this story? There's a lot of wonderful things about the story. It's Jesus' first miracle. John goes out of his way to say, this wine was far better than the other wine. What do we make of that? There's so much that's hard to know about what to make of this story, but I think the one thing we do know is that Jesus helps. He helps in this situation. It's behind the scenes. His mother asks him to do something. It's not in front of a crowd. Nobody notices. He just helps out. He uses his first miracle to make the party better because there's a wedding. And when you're at a wedding, if you can do something to help to make it better, you do it. He solves the problem because he knew it mattered. I've presided now, like the past 20 some odd years, I've been a minister at a lot of weddings, and it's my great privilege and honor. I love doing weddings, especially for couples that I've known for a long time. And one of the things I love is, especially with young couples, is how naive they are. It's so in love. It's going to be wonderful. It's perfect. And I won't just marry people. I insist on some counseling beforehand. And they're like, we're not going to fight about money. And it's like, oh, yes, you will. And, you know, they're overblown and they're expensive and they're complicated. But the other thing that I love, there are so many interfaith couples that come together, people from all different places in the world. And it's always this commingling, coming together in all of our beautiful differences. And I just love the honor of, I've done Hindu Christian, Buddhist Christian weddings. Experience. And so the joy at the heart of it, regardless of all the circumstances, whatever traditions we're bringing in, is that there's this joy of this togetherness, of this love of this couple, but it's not just about the couple, because that's why they gather these loved ones together, this extended family, because not only do they love them, they need them. We need each other. And it's also a change, a transformation of two families. They, just like the wine, are forever changed. These two lives, these two ancestries, and these two destinies come together and are forever changed, forever connected. You know, everybody remembers the wedding. It's like, oh yeah, like I was thinking of Cheryl and Walter, who were married here right outside on the courtyard. And I'll never forget that smile on Cheryl's face was so beautiful. And Walter was like, it was delightful. And whenever I look at that spot, I can remember Cheryl. It's like always a part of me and a part of us. And it was the most glorious blue sky. So it's with us always. And even in marriages that don't work out, maybe all kinds of disasters happened at the wedding, or there was tension, or the marriage didn't work out, we still remember all of those connections. We're changed through it. And so I think this recognition all of this is connected. We are water. You know, so when we drink water, we're not. You know, with couples that I'm counseling, like, it's like, well, I'm spiritual but not religious. I hear that over and over again. It's like, I'm not sure. I'm kind of agnostic about God. I hear that. And then I ask people, do you believe that all life is connected? And I was like, yes. And it's like, so start with that. God is connection. The brilliance, the science, the chemistry, the biology, the physics of it, we're connected. One of my friends just sent me a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's on my cell phone, so I can't pick it up right now, but it was thinking about we are the stardust, the nuclear explosions of the stars, then like the creation of the planets, the biochemistry of it. It's really miraculous, and we are so connected beyond our imaginations. So there's a reading sometimes I'll lift up at weddings from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, the wisdom literature. And it says, two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. You know, it's not necessarily saying the only way to do this is marriage. You know, like, Jesus wasn't married. Like, he should have been. What is beyond the wedding day? And what is it that we're trying to create together in this gathered community? And it's the wisdom. It's a courage of love. So thinking about this paradigm shift, thinking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, you all remember the first image from the Apollo missions of the Earth, that beautiful, in that deep black sky, there was this beautiful orb, this blue-green planet. And virtually every astronaut who talked about seeing home from that perspective were profoundly changed forever. Um, Recently, in 2008, astronaut Ron Garan explains his sense of this, and he writes, when I beheld our home, it was as if time stood still. I was flooded with both emotions and awareness. But as I looked down at the earth, the stunning, fragile oasis, this island that has been given to us, that has protected all life from the harshness of space, a sadness came over me, and I was hit in the gut with an undeniable, sobering contradiction. In spite of the overwhelming beauty of the scene, serious inequity exists on this apparent hungry at night, the social conflicts, the injustice, the poverty that remain pervasive across this planet. And I think about now, the threat of war, the ever-growing refugee crises. We are traveling together on this beautiful and fragile planet. There was another story from the space station. Um, Russian, US, and German crew gathered together one night for dinner. And as they're passing over the earth, they're passing over the United States and Germany and Russia. And they're telling stories about, oh yeah, my family's probably having dinner tonight. This is what they're having. Then they're talking about, yeah, my family's probably doing this. And it reminds me of the breaking bread at the supper in Emmaus. Seeing how connected, despite the nationalism, the human-created boundaries on this planet, there is a sense of oneness, the utter humanity of these astronauts in space talking about their families, eating meals together. This shared bond, this connection of understanding of our interconnection, interdependence. But that's just the beginning of it. And then just one token day of remembering his prophetic wisdom. And I looked through Stanford University as a collection of his writings, and so I was curious of togetherness, a legacy of togetherness. And remember in his I Have a Dream speech that one day all God's children will walk hand in hand, not just some, and that all will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. It was a dream not just for himself or his family or his people, but for all, and how connected we really all are. And in his letter in a Birmingham jail, he writes, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one affects all." What does it take to live like that, to allow ourselves to be affected, especially by the people who are most vulnerable? When someone I love is suffering, it's easier, but to open my heart up to love even more, to love people I don't even know. I think about our love mission that's coming up on Valentine's Day, and that's an invitation for us. disabled. And it's a chance to contradict what the world tells them. You are alone, you are isolated. It's like, no, you're not. Clarifies, it's like, why are we alive? What's our purpose? To bring good news to the poor, freedom to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to proclaim the year of Jubilee. It's a mission of love, especially to those who have been pushed aside, who are forgotten. And it's seeing, with that consciousness, how we can lift one another up together to see this connection. And so I think that's why this is the first sign in John's gospel, Jesus, because there are miracles happening everywhere, not just here in a church on Sunday morning, to wherever you are. There's opportunities to take a step to be conscious, just like Mary's mother was, Jesus' mother Mary was. She was a situational awareness. There's a need. And it's to say yes and to do what we can and to see that that benefit is not just for one, but it benefits the whole. And so may we live with the capacity and the wisdom to see that connection and to step into it and say yes again